Hello everyone, and welcome to Guwahati MuleSoft Meetup group. Today, our topic is fundamentals of MuleSoft, and our speaker is Ankita. Organizers for this meetup is Vaishnavi and myself. Today, Vaishnavi is not present for some personal reason, and I'm just skipping our intro for today, and we'll head directly to Ankita. So, Ankita, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure, Abhishek. Thank you so much. So, hello everyone. My name is Ankita Mishra Shahi, and I'm working in IT industry for more than 11 years now. I think in September I'll be completing my 12 years, and I have been working in the field of testing and customer support, and now I am working in Epicero as a manager technical training, wherein I take trainings as well as I also manage technical trainings in my organization, and I'm MCT and MCPA certified. MCPA certified, yeah. So today we are going to have this meetup wherein, as Abhishek has already mentioned, we will be talking about fundamentals of MuleSoft. Yeah, Abhishek.
Thank you so much, Ankita, and thank you so much for taking my invite and coming over for being a speaker to our group and taking up a good topic today. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
So I'll just read out the safe harbor statement. So both the speaker and the host are organizing this meetup in individual capacity only. We are not representing our companies here. This presentation is strictly for learning purpose only. Organizer or presenter do not hold any responsibility that same solution will work for your business requirements. This presentation is not meant for any promotional activities. Some housekeeping. So the recording of this meetup will be uploaded in the meetup page within 24 hours, and in the chat I have already shared the link for the meetup page. If you have any question, just feel free to pop up in between. You have got the mic access, so you can ask your question anytime to Ankita or anyone in the group can answer that. It's not like the speaker or the host should only answer. Anyone can answer that. We would like to make it more interactive. This is a knowledge sharing session, so everyone is welcome to share their knowledge over here. You can ask any type of question you want. Maybe like you don't need to feel like whether it will be appropriate or not. And the last one and the more important one is the feedback. So please give us the feedback once the meetup is over. You will get a mail to give your feedback, so please give us the feedback with respect to today's session, and you can also give the suggestion like what next topic you want us to bring up in the meetup. So that will help us to improve, that will help the speaker to improve in further, help us to bring up more interesting topic which you people require. So now the agenda, so over to you, Ankita. I will just stop sharing so that you can pick it up from here.
Sure. Thank you, Abhishek. So,
Thank you.
all right, everyone. So, as Abhishek has already mentioned, that today's session is very interesting. We will be talking about the fundamentals of MuleSoft. So, we are actually going to talk about why MuleSoft and what is MuleSoft and why there is such a big deal about MuleSoft in the market today. So this topic is quite conceptual. We will be talking more of the theoretical aspects, but at the end of this session, I'll also take you through Anypoint platform. I'll give you a quick demonstration. So if you are new to MuleSoft, you'll get acquainted with the platform. And having said that, I would also like everyone to be interactive in the session. Please share your views, share your ideas. Most of you are working in your own organizations, implementing MuleSoft in your own business. So we would definitely like to know about it. So please feel free to, share your knowledge with us as well. So today's agenda, we'll be talking about a quick introduction about MuleSoft. Then we will talk about the challenges which has actually led to the birth of MuleSoft, I would say. Then we will talk about differences between project-based approach and this new IT operating model, which is again originated, or this was the idea of MuleSoft. With this new IT operating model, API-led connectivity approach came into the picture. So we will have a quick discussion about API-led connectivity approach. What is it? What are the benefits of using API-led connectivity approach, which has some subtopics like system API, process API, and experience API. Because of this API-led connectivity approach, application network has evolved. So we will be talking about this also in detail. We will also learn about API development lifecycle, and I think by the end of this session, we would be able to answer the question automatically. So we will definitely discuss about why MuleSoft. And as we already have a separate section of question and answers, but I'm repeating it again and again. Let's make the session more interactive, and please share your questions, your thoughts, your idea of understanding with us at any given time. Okay, so let's begin. So this is the mantra of MuleSoft: to connect the world's applications, data, and devices to transform business. Okay, so instead of uh, focusing on just one application or focusing on just one principle or technology, MuleSoft wants every single node, be it application, data, devices, hardware, software, database. We want to connect each and every node so that we can get the output in our business. This MuleSoft was actually founded by 2006 by Ross Mason. And the name, the idea of the name is very interesting because the name has actually originated from the word mule. So I think most of you know what mule is. Mule is nothing but they are animals. They are actually the hybrid combinations of donkeys and horses. So the idea of keeping this name MuleSoft was actually originated because of mules. Now we all know mules are we generally use. I mean, people used to use mules for carrying loads, right? They used to carry and transfer load from one place to another place. So this was the idea of softening the hard work, the repetitive work done by our developers or our IT people in the IT industry. So now we do not want to do the repetitive task the way mules do. So this was the idea of keeping the name, for getting the name from the word mule. And also, as you can also see that mule is a hybrid of horses also, and horses represent speed. So we not only we would want to eliminate the repetitive task, we would also want to focus on fast delivery to our clients. So this is why the name MuleSoft has been originated from the word, I mean, from the hybrid of donkeys and horses. So we actually want to reflect the platform's hybrid capabilities of smart work, elimination of repetitive tasks, as well as fast delivery, which is actually the demand in today's IT world. Okay. MuleSoft is nothing but it is an integration platform for connecting your SaaS and enterprise applications in the cloud or on premises or even hybrid. So in MuleSoft, it also gives you a facility to give the to combine the combination of your on premise and cloud features. Now, MuleSoft has been acquired by Salesforce, and the headquarter of MuleSoft is in San Francisco. And since MuleSoft is evolving like anything, currently we have 18,000 plus customers around the globe, who are actually related with MuleSoft, who are actually taking advantage of MuleSoft in their business. All right. So this is a small intro about MuleSoft. I hope it is okay. Any questions? Any confusions? Any idea that you would like to share? Okay.
I'll add
Yeah.
one point,
Yes,
Ankita.
please. Yes, yes,
So
sure, Ashish.
it's not only the integration platform, it's a complete integration platform. Why I'm saying complete?
Mm-hmm.
So if you see under the one umbrella, you'll find everything. Okay. And it's not only integration platform, it's along with API management also. So you'll find their API manager, runtime manager. You can do your access management. You can have your infrastructure related stuff like VPCs, DLPs. Every you have a license for MuleSoft, you don't need to buy anything. Okay, so definitely
Absolutely.
some extra stuff you need to pay extra for that, but those are tightly integrated with the Anypoint platform. You don't need to do anything. So, for example, API manager won't come with the license, but if you buy it right, you don't need to do anything. It will be available in your license. A data graph, it is there. Okay, you don't need to do anything. Just need to pay. It will be plugged in your on your Anypoint platform. So that's why it's a complete API management tool. That's how we conclude when we use any point platform. It's a complete iPaaS solution.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ashish. Thank you so much. Yes. All right. So let's move on. Okay. So now we are going to talk about the challenges. I mean, why this idea was actually originated. So this was because of the space which was getting created between the demand and our delivery capacity, which is also called as IT delivery gap. Now, let me take you through the IT delivery gap. See, the only thing which is constant, we all know, is change, right? And talk about IT industry, change is something which is happening every now and then, isn't it? I mean, a few years back, we only were knowing about the Nokia phones. You remember that, where we used to play that snake game, right? And now you are living in the world of smartphones, and not only one kind of smartphones. You have different varieties of smartphones out there in the market. Few years back, you were only knowing about an OS called as Windows, but now you are living in the world of, variety of operating systems, be it Android, be it Unix, Solaris, AIX. uh, uh, the list is very long. Talk about database management system. A few years back, we were only knowing about that. Okay, we used to have server rooms where we used to have big hardwares and RAM, and where our data used to get stored. But now you are living in the world of cloud. You are living in the world of Azure, AWS, Google, Oracle. There are so many in the list. So with these variety comes different demands. Every client has their own demands. They want their resources, they want their users to get the benefit out of different platforms, different technologies, different databases, different cloud system. Now it looks very fascinating when you are a user, right? It looks very good that, okay, today I'm using this particular software and tomorrow you will have upgraded to something else. But talk from a developer's perspective, talk from the person who is actually working in the IT industry to deliver the same for you. The challenge is actually increasing because of these changes. Initially, since the changes were less, I mean, since the variety was less, the demands were less. And so the delivery capacity was manageable. But since the changes are growing, since we are evolving, the demands are actually increasing from client to client, from technology to technology. And hence, it is actually impacting our delivery capacity. So this gap that you are seeing, which is actually because of the reason we are evolving like anything today, is called as IT delivery gap. Okay, now there has been a gap between the business that needs to be delivered and the IT, the project management, which is actually working on the business. We are who are actually working on implementing the idea into the business. So this was the reason why this IT delivery gap has increased. And that is the reason why we need something that can overcome this particular gap. Now, what could be the options here? One option could be hire as many resources as you can, right? With every new technology, you hire a new resource having the knowledge of that particular technology. But do you think, is it feasible? No, every time we cannot hire a new resource, right? Because you never know what is there out there in the future. You are, as I told you, that we are evolving like anything. We are actually entering the world of artificial intelligence. So you never know what's there in the future. So we cannot rely on hiring resources, and that does not sound, logical. Also, second thing is keep on educating your existing resources. Even that is not feasible because you cannot, have your learning and development system too strong that every time a new technology comes into the picture, you have to upskill your resources and make them, capable of delivering or capable of providing you uh, the the code, the implementation which is needed by the client. Even that is not feasible. So the idea of new IT operating model came into the picture. Okay, what is that new IT operating model? We'll be talking about it. But initially, before this new IT operating model, we had this project based approach. In case of project based approach, people used to deliver the standalone projects depending upon the demand of the client. So if, let's say, the client wants a web application to be created, so what our developers used to do, they used to, get all the data in place in their base system. Now whatever base systems that they are using, they used to have a data layer. Now on top of data layer, they used to have a process layer, the business logic layer, where they are actually writing codes or logic to implement the data which is there in the data layer, to orchestrate the data which is there in the data layer. And then they used to create the user interface so that the external user should be able to pull out the data or should be able to work with that particular project. But that approach was highly tightly coupled in nature. The reason being because the entire application was a standalone project. They were interconnected with each other. They were monolithic in nature, right? And there was no scope of reusability. As just now we discussed that we are living in the world of changes. So right now, not only web application, my clients also need mobile application. They also need their data to be accessed by Alexa or any kind of artificial intelligence. Now, just imagine that when you are actually building a standalone project for a web app application, when mobile application will come into the picture, you will again have to build a new application from scratch. So this is what I was talking about, the repetitive task. See, the data layer is still the same. The business logic is also the same. But in this particular situation, since my UI is changing from web application to mobile application, I will have to create or build the entire application from scratch. Don't you think this is a repetitive task that I'm actually asking my developers to do? So that was the demerit of my project-based approach. Next thing was, since the architecture is standalone, since it is monolithic in nature, it was difficult to govern, right? Because they all were interconnected with each other. So if anything breaks, you have to actually go from from point 1 to point X to understand where the error has occurred. So even that was a challenge, because once the application comes into the business perspective, it gets complicated and it becomes difficult to govern each and everything, right from unit by unit. And of course, there is a limited room for growth. Tomorrow, if you want to add any new enhancement, or if you want to make some new changes to your existing application, you never know you would be able to do that or not. So there is a question mark on whether we are able to meet the business requirement in future or not. And similarly, limited opportunity for reuse. For the same business, you cannot use the web application for a mobile application, having the data layer same, having the logic layer same, isn't it? Just because you are changing the UI. And that is the reason the businesses will be unable to meet demands, because it will be time taking. You have to develop everything as a standalone project from scratch. So definitely it is going to be time taking, and you never know whether you would be able to incorporate the same thing in the upcoming changes or not, right? So these were the challenges of project based approach. Okay, any questions, any inputs, please?
I think the project-based approach, one of the big advantage or limitation, or we can say bottleneck, was scalability, right? If
Absolutely,
you
yes,
want
Ashish.
something, right, you need to scale entire stuff, right? Even if you want to scale your logging part of your project, you need to scale entire stuff. So there was no loosely coupling, as you mentioned, right? Tightly coupled.
Absolutely, because they are
That
standalone in nature, right?
yeah, that was one biggest disadvantage, I think, in monolithic, or even in SOA it was there.
Hmm. Right,
Okay,
right,
yeah,
yes.
so that's one thing. And it was a lot of dependencies will be there. To always you need to have all the dependent job has to up and run, right? If one of the fail, right, entire application will goes down and you will be having huge business loss. That was the
Absolutely.
biggest advantage of disadvantage of project
Disadvantage
based
of project.
approach. Yeah.
Exactly, because it's completely monolithic in nature. So there is a interdependency in each and every node, in each and every unit with each other. Exactly. Thank you, Ashish. Okay, so since these were the challenges that we were facing, and since we are already aware of the IT delivery gap, definitely going ahead with this approach was not feasible, right? Because we actually want to grow. There is a lot of competition in the market, and we cannot stick to this project based approach. Hence, we got a new idea from MuleSoft, which was new IT operating model. Now, the idea behind this new IT operating model was the concept of reusability. Now, let me give you an example. Let's say I want to create a PPT in my organization. Okay, I want to give a presentation to my team in my organization. So, whenever you create a presentation, what do? You download a PPT template, then you create a welcome page, you create an agenda page, an intro page, then there are contents, then thank you page, question answer page, and so and so. Correct? That's how you create a presentation. So, this is how I have created a PPT for my presentation. Now, let's say after a few days, there is a person from another team, let's say finance team, he wants to give a presentation to his team. Now, when he has to create a PPT, what he has to do, he will have to again download the template, create a welcome page, thank you page, question answer page, so and so, everything right from scratch, and then he will have to deliver his presentation. So now just imagine, if I already have a template created, then that particular resource would not have to recreate everything from scratch, isn't it? Now, to save some time, what can he do? He can ask me to share my presentation with him. Now, any PPT will have the same template. Any PPT will have a welcome page, thank you page, question answer page, everything will be the same, isn't it? Only thing would be that is going to change would be the content. That would depend upon my audience. So as per his audience, that resource can ask me to share my PPT and can change the content in that particular template. So don't you think it will save a lot of time and it will help us to deliver fast? The combination of horse and donkey work, right? This was the idea of new IT operating model, the concept of reusability. Okay, not only reusability, also innovation. Why innovation? Because if I am creating a template, I would not want to have some limitations into that. For example, let's get back to the same example. If I'm going to share a presentation with somebody else, then that person should have a flexibility to share the font size of that particular template. He should be able to delete some of the slides. He should be able to add some of the slides. He should be able to change the logo. He should be able to modify it depending upon his audience's requirements. And this was the idea behind this new IT operating model. That instead of going through a project based approach, or thinking, when you are actually working on a project, you actually think about the outcome. You think about the output depending upon your client requirement. Now, what are we going to do using this new IT operating model? Instead of making it output based, let's make it more of involving the capacity of modularity. I'm going to develop my nodes or my assets in a way that they can be further utilized in any other projects as well. Okay, so this was the idea of my new IT operating model. Now, what are we going to do? Instead of building each and everything from scratch, making my project monolithic in nature, creating a standalone architecture, I would now focus on creating assets so that they should be reusable, so that they should be consumed and innovated depending upon the need of my business, depending upon the needs of my clients. And for that, definitely I would have to enable my resources to learn how to use that. For example, if I have created a presentation, I have created a template, and when I'm going to share it with my resource, the resource doesn't know how to download it from the link provided. Then what is the purpose of creating an asset like that when the other user doesn't know how to reuse it? So not only I'm going to focus on building new assets, I'm also going to focus on enabling my resources, my industry, to utilize those assets so that they should be able to access them and apply them in their own business or in their own projects. Okay, so this was the idea of new IT operating model, and the pillars of new IT operating model is nothing but the concept of reusability as well as innovation. Okay, any questions, please? All good?
No questions till now.
Perfect.
Anyone, any question?
All right. So, how are we going to achieve this? Now, the next question is that the concept looks very fascinating, but how are we going to achieve this? So, to achieve this, now we have the approach of API-led connectivity. All right. Now, what is this API-led connectivity approach? It is a methodological way to connect data to applications through reusable and purposeful APIs. So just now I have spoken about assets, right? In the world of new IT operating model, in the world of MuleSoft, we call them as assets. Now, assets can be anything. Assets can be an API. It can be a documentation. It can be an example, a fragment. Anything can be called as an asset. A connector, even that can be called as an asset. For example, Wikipedia. Wikipedia can also be treated as an asset, right? Whenever we need any information, where do we go? We go to Wikipedia. It's a reusable asset that can be used across the world by any of the, any users. So same thing. What do we want to do in new IT operating model? We actually have focused on the word assets. And APIs are one of the assets. And now, to actually achieve the business, to actually achieve my client's requirement, I'm going to use this API-led connectivity approach. And instead of creating a monolithic architecture, now what I have done, I have separated my application into 3 different layers. Now the first layer is called as system APIs. The system APIs would be responsible only to take care of data from the base system. Now whatever there is in my base system and whatever base system I am going to use in my application, I don't need to worry about it. Maybe it's AWS, maybe it's MySQL, maybe it's Oracle. I don't need to worry about it. Why? Because I am not going to write a logic directly on my base system. I'm going to create an API that should only be responsible to take care of the data which is managed by this particular base system. Okay, so the job of my system APIs is just to unlock the data from the system and to manage data. And when I say manage data, it will take care of everything: adding data, reading data, updating the data, deleting the data, all the CRUD operations, security related policies, everything will be managed by the system API. Now the second layer is called as process API. The job of process API is to write logic, to write business logic so that you can orchestrate the data which is being pulled by your system API. Definitely, these process APIs are nothing but business logic, and they are also individual elements. Okay, so that you can reuse this particular logic in any other application, in any other project, depending upon the requirement. So I'm not going to create any kind of dependencies among these particular nodes. They just need to talk to each other. That's it. Okay. And then the last layer is called as experience API. That should be able to give the user interface or user interactions to my client. Now you can see, if I'll take you back to the same application, same example of a web-based application. So if my client says that, okay, you have to create a web-based application for so and so requirement. So what have you done now? Using this API-led connectivity approach, you have used a base system. On top of that, you have created a system API, which will be able to pull out the data from the base system. On top of that, you have a process API, which will be able to orchestrate the data, which is being pulled by system API. And then you will create a web-based experience API for your client. Now, next time, if the client says that, hey, I would like to have a mobile application for the same business, you do not need to create everything from the scratch, because your system API and process API would be the same. The same system API and process API you can reuse, which are actually being created for your web-based application, because at the end of the day, your data and your logic are going to be same. Right? All you have to do is you just have to focus on your experience API. So don't you think you have actually, eliminated all the donkey work, and you have actually, you are actually able to provide or cater your customer in the fastest way possible. This was the idea of new IT operating model, which can be implemented using API-led connectivity approach, the concept of reusability. And now, if I take you to the concept of reusability further, let's say there is another application, and that application is also using base system as system 1. So for that particular application, you can reuse the system API again, S1. You don't need to worry about creating a system API once again to consume the data from the same base system consumed by any other application or any other business person. All right. Any questions, any confusion about this API-led connectivity approach?
We have one question from Uday. Like he's asking, is 3 layers are required to develop a project?
Uday, see, it actually depends. Generally, when you use API-led connectivity approach, of course, we would like to divide our project into 3 layers, and we try to create it in that manner only. But it depends from use case to use case also. Sometimes, I mean, I have not worked on any project, so I think Ashish, you or Abhishek, you would be better to answer this question. But please correct me if I'm wrong. There are certain use cases where you can directly use experience APIs on top of system APIs as well, isn't it?
Yes, true. So like Uday, it's completely depend what's your requirement is. Okay, it's not like mandatory you should always use the API led connectivity, but it depends what you required, then the architecture, what is required. If in your project, if you have more of reusability and security purpose, then you can go with this approach. Okay, so it completely depend on your requirement. Maybe Ashish can add on this.
Yeah, 3 layer is a myth. Okay, guys, I'll
Yeah.
share the link. Okay, your architecture can be 2 layer, 3 layer, 4 layer, 5 layer, or even single layer. Okay, so 5 layer in the sense your system, right? They have their own layer. Okay, So I'll share one link in the chat. Okay, so it's not mandatory to have 3 layers. Let's say you have a bad job, right? Why you need experience layer? No need, right? If you don't have any logic, right, to orchestration logic or something, system layer is enough. Okay, so whenever there is a bad job, you're okay with process API and system API. So based on, again, right, based on your requirement, as I mentioned, right, 2 layer, 3 layer, 4 layer, 5 layer, it's up to you. Okay, this is just a standard recommended by or proposed by MuleSoft, 3 layer. Okay, you can go ahead with any layers. Okay,
Thank
so
you,
I'll share the
Ashish,
link
so
in the
much.
chat. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, Uday, I think we are able to answer the question, right? That see, this is the ideal approach that has been proposed by MuleSoft. But definitely, when you go to practical environment, it completely depends upon the requirement and the demand of your client. Okay.
Hi Ankita, Achal this side.
Yeah. Hi, Achal.
So I wanted to know, can we relate API-led connectivity with 4+1 view as well?
Okay. Ashish, would you like to share your thoughts on it?
4+1 view is architecture level. Okay, so I know what you're talking about. You're talking about physical view, logical
Logical,
view,
correct,
security
correct.
view. No, that is completely different. There we talked about the interaction. Okay, so when we talked about logical view, we talked about how many systems are there and how they are interacting with each other. Okay, when we talked about physical, there we talked about how we are going to connect these systems. When you talked about security, then you talked about the policies and all that, right? So that is different how you are looking at your application network, what all areas you looking at it. Okay, so 4+1 is the last one is actually your test cases and all that. Okay, so 4 views are your physical, logical, development, and then something called platform. Okay, so those are not related to this API lead. API lead is approach of splitting
Building
your
an
work.
API.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you're
Okay.
splitting actually a work instead of writing everything. It's a modularization basically.
Mhm.
In C language or C++ language, what you do, we create multiple functions, right?
Correct.
Similar way, we are giving responsibilities to these APIs. So system API just to unlock the data from your aim system or target system. Process API does the basically this is the MVC pattern, guys. If you are coming from the Java background, this is exactly MVC pattern. Okay, model view controller. This is nothing new. Okay, this is I use a word whenever I teach this concept to my students, right?
Mhm.
What I use, it's a old wine in new bottle. Okay, so it was
Okay.
there already. It's not new, but we are doing in different way. We are using reusability here. So your API, it was there in the Java concept also, in the SOA also.
Yeah.
But what happens when you cook something inside your house, right? It will be up to you only. But if you cook something inside your house and you keep it outside and you put a board over there, okay, this
Mhm.
food is available for outside guys also. That is
Mhm.
exactly the API led approach, and that is exactly the reusability. So you're creating API, you're putting that API in the exchange, and you're telling other people that, okay, hey, this is API here. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to cook that curry again. Okay, and you can use it. Okay, that's what we do. It was there in the SOA, but what it was there inside your house. So nobody was aware of that. Is there any API or implementation related to this particular requirement? Okay,
So
so the four
Ashish,
plus one, that is
yeah,
this one.
just to
Yeah.
summarize, I would say as a developer, we can only see the API-led connectivity, while as an architect, we can go via with the 4+1 view as well. That how broad it will be look alike.
No, don't relate API late with the 4+1 view. 4+1 views, like documenting your implementation or your use case or business use case. Okay, that's where we use 4+1 view. Okay,
Mhm.
API late is happens implementation. Okay,
Yeah.
implementation. So 4+1 view, for one API you can have 4+1 view for one API.
Okay.
Okay, so in that API, let's say for example, I can say system API, right? Which is your target system, which is your consumer over there, how you're going to deploy that, because you're going to have complete life cycle for that particular API.
Okay.
Okay, you got my point, right?
Yeah,
If
yeah, I
you have
got.
complete life cycle, then definitely you'll have 4+1 view.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank you, Achal. Okay, so I think, yes, we have a question. Yeah, Jay, I think we are good, right? So, since we are talking about API led connectivity approach, so each of the nodes that you are seeing are independent and single unit. They are, they are APIs themselves. So, for each API, definitely you have to go through the entire API development lifecycle. You have to go through the entire process of creating an API and, of course, maintaining them. All right, Jay?
Yeah, thanks, Ankita.
Okay, all right. So let's move.
Hi Ankita, Annapurna here. I
Yes,
have
ma'am.
one question. Like, see, if there is any client who is new to MuleSoft,
Uh-huh.
okay, and we propose, these many layers and everything, how do we, convince them? See, we are segregating them into different APIs. Everything is one unit, and it can be reusable in the long term
Mm-hmm.
picture if we see. But what happens with MuleSoft is, we can quickly connect. So the expectations are also set, like, everything can be done very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
How do we convince that, with this model?
See, again, I'll give you the theoretical aspect. Naturally, from practical aspect, Ashish and Abhishek, I would request you to incorporate your views as well. So,
Okay.
Annapurna, see, when we are talking about fast delivery, so let's say, as I just now I told you, right, that if this system API that you can see it in my image, it has nothing to do with this particular project. It has nothing to do with this particular application only. This system API that you have created is only created to take care of this particular base system. Let's say this base system is AWS and this base system is Salesforce.
Yes.
Okay, so when you have created this system API, you have just made sure that all the data which is residing in AWS can be managed using this particular system API. Now, when your client is also using, let's say, Salesforce or AWS, then what you can do, you can convince them that if they want a fast delivery, you can reuse the system API, right? Because it has no dependency on this particular project. You can reuse the same system API in that particular project as well. So, of course, it depends from requirement to requirement and approach. If your application, if your client actually wants a fast delivery, and if you see that there are no future aspects of this particular application, it is kind of a localized application only related to that particular client. So, definitely, you are not going to invest in creating different kinds of layers over there.
Okay.
Yeah, right, Ashish and Abhishek?
Sorry, I somebody was pinging me. What was the question?
Yeah, so
Can you repeat the
Ashish.
question, please?
Yeah, Ashish, it was me. Like, we have these many different layers here in API-led connectivity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. See, when it comes to reusability factor, obviously this system API will be reused again. But at the moment, if there is any new client who is very new to MuleSoft, how do
Mm-hmm.
we convince them the benefits of all these layers or creating so many APIs for fast delivery? Like,
Okay. So there are two things here. Okay. One
okay.
thing, what kind of deployment model you are using. Okay. So if you're using deployment model Cloud Hub, definitely time to market and everything
Hmm.
will be out of the box available for you. You don't need
Yes.
any expertise over there. So that is the one point where you can go very fast. Second one, if you're really implementing first project, the time to market and the time for the release for that project is exactly similar to the any other project in the world. Okay, because you are going to create all this stuff in real
From
world
scratch.
from
Yeah.
the scratch. The point comes when you're creating second project. So in second project, when you start creating second project, you will be available with all the templates will be available there, common services will be available there, like logging service, error handling service, notification service. These all are already plugged in inside your template, so you don't need to reinvent. Again, I'm using the word called reinvent. Okay, so the main mission of MuleSoft is, that's fine, you're creating reusable asset, but you need to be very sure that whether those reusable assets are getting used or not. Okay, so when I define MuleSoft mission statement, I generally use a mathematical equation: the number of reusable assets minus number of consumable assets, that should be minimized to zero. That should be the mission statement of the MuleSoft. Okay, so that's where I'm pointing again. Second area is You have reusable templates, connectors. If you have created any connector for your, right, the connector is the best example of reusability. Anybody can use that connector. But when you're actually implementing first project, nothing will be available for you. You'll be creating from the scratch.
Yes.
But when you go to the next project or go to the next client, this documentation, these reusable assets will be available to you. So there you can convince them that, okay, we can go based on the deployment model and based on this particular reusable assets, which are going to use in all the projects.
Okay. Thank you, Ashish.
Yeah, thank you, Ashish. So yeah, Annapurna, right? We got it right that it completely depends from client to client. That if there are any future prospects that you can, get from your client, that this particular project, for example, in this example itself, we saw that we created an application for web app. But if you can see that there is a future prospect of creating the same application in a mobile app, then of course, why not going with this particular approach? But if the approach or if the project itself is localized, then of course it completely depends, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you,
just to
Ankita.
add that, Ankita,
Yeah.
for Annapurna, the thing is, if you're not gonna use the best practices or approaches, then there is no benefit to using the MuleSoft, right?
Right, right, absolutely.
It comes with the, because why MuleSoft comes in the picture, because it's showing like these are the problems you are facing and this is the solution. You will get it if you follow these best practices and approaches. If
Mm-hmm.
you will not gonna follow that, that it will not help you out in any way,
Mm-hmm.
right? Same
Correct.
way in like agile methodology, why it comes in the picture, why DevOps comes in the picture, they have some sort of problems, they face that, and they are, entertaining you to remove them. So if you not follow that best practices or the protocols, obviously you will land it into the same situation again,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
So we
Yes,
have
yes.
to educate them. This is best practices. If you want to implement the MuleSoft platform, you want to use the capability, you have to follow the best practices and the protocols, the approaches they are saying. Then we will get the benefits. Otherwise, you can
Absolutely.
switch in
Yes.
any sort of technology. It will not gonna help.
Right, right, Kazanan.
If
You're all,
this is a
yeah.
mindset change. This is approach change, right? We have to change that.
Correct, correct. Yes.
And
All
that's
right.
where Ankita, sorry, so that's where C4E come into picture. Okay, guys, see, again, I'm repeating, when you cook something, somebody has to dare to do the advertisement, somebody has to do the marketing for your asset, right? Somebody has to tell other organizations, org in your particular clients organization, sub organization. Okay, more correct. So there they should know. That's the reason in C4E you see people will be there from the all the orgs. Okay, so architects will be there, developers will be there, tester will be there in your C4E team. So they will be aware of, okay, this asset is already there in the exchange. We don't need to reinvent. So that's where the reusability comes into picture, and that's where you will achieve time to market. Where optimization or performance optimization over there. C4E plays a lot big role over here.
Yeah. Thank you, Ashish. Okay, so this was about API-led connectivity approach. Any other questions related to API-led connectivity approach? Okay, good. All right, so yes, because of this API-led connectivity approach, we have the evolvement of application network. Because right now we had a good discussion about the concept of reusability over here. So when we are actually creating an application, now we are not creating an application from a project's perspective. We are actually talking about the concept of reusability. Just like Ashish mentioned, that when you create a reusable project, it should be consumed also. And I really like the idea, Ashish, that number of reusable assets minus consumable assets should be actually equal to zero. Then only the concept comes into the picture. Then only the idea is actually enforced. So again, if I give you the example of PPT, so let's say I have created a PPT template and I have shared it across my organization. I want people to use, but let's say in my organization nobody gives a presentation. Then what is the purpose of me investing a lot of time and effort in creating a reusable asset like that? So when we are actually creating an asset, when we are actually creating an API, our core mantra should be that whether or not it is going to be reusable in future by any other application, no matter what changes are going to come in future, no matter what applications or what projects or what demands are going to be shared by my clients. And that's how this application network is going to be evolved. So as we can see, it is a way to connect applications, data, and devices through APIs that exposes some or all of their assets and data on a network. Now, when you are actually contributing to one project, you are not only devoting your time or investing your effort and resources only for one single project. Rather, you are contributing to an entire network, because the same asset can be utilized by other project also. The same asset can be utilized by other business application also, and that is how an entire application network can be created. It can be developed. And yes, I think, Gazan, you were talking about a cultural shift, right? That it is a mindset that we actually have to change. So yes, we were actually going to discuss about this also. That when I talk about MuleSoft, it's not just an approach. This API-led connectivity approach is not a technology. It's a kind of a mindset that you are actually incorporating when you're talking to a new client. That hey, look, if you are actually going to have some future prospects in future, I mean in near future, in coming time, then this is the best approach that you should take. And when I say about a cultural shift, I'm not putting an emphasis on how many assets are present in the application network, rather how many consumers are getting value from it. So Ashish, you mentioned the same thing, right? That the number of reusable assets, how many assets that I am creating, does not make any sense until and unless it is not being consumed, it is not being used. And that is the idea of MuleSoft. And for these, reusability consumption, we have a team called as C4E team. So those who are new to this particular terminology, C4E is nothing but Center for Enablement. So Center for Enablement team actually keeps a track of all these reusable assets in an organization. Because naturally, if I am working on a template and let's say some other person is also working on a template at the same point of time, then again there is no point of doing the donkey work here, right? There's no point of doing a repetitive task. So this is the C4A team's responsibility to take care of each and every assets that has been created in an organization. And this is the job of a C4E team, to make sure that whichever particular assets is actually being consumed properly. So not only consumed, I would use the word consumed broadly here, because again, when I'm creating, let's say, if I created a template of PPT and let's say only one or two users is using that, then again, there is no purpose of investing your time and resources and effort in that particular asset. Try to understand the market, try to understand your clients, try to understand the business. And that is the reason this IT delivery gap, can be reduced, can be actually controlled. Because now we are not thinking from the project perspective, now we are actually thinking from a business perspective. Okay, so this is the idea of our application network. And the best line about this application network is that it is recomposable. It bends, not breaks, built for a change. So every time now, you do not need to start from square one. You do not need to start from scratch. You can actually modify it, bend it the way you want it to be used. For example, again, that PPT template. Now that another resource does not have to recreate everything from scratch. He can download my template and he can make any kind of changes that he wants to do. But he does not have to again invest his time in doing the repetitive task. Rather, he would innovate. He would actually invest more of his time in innovating new stuff. So this is the ideology. This was the principle of MuleSoft. Okay. Any questions? Oh, perfect. Now, how to achieve this application network? How to get the API-led connectivity approach right? So we are being talking about the same thing again and again. Let me just take you to a streamlined process. So whatever we have discussed, we actually implement it using a very beautifully articulated process over here. Now, what happens when now the assets are being created? The first thing is the assets has to be reusable. That has to be my first and foremost idea, that it has to be reused. I'm going to create it in a way so that it can be reused. But how are you going to understand whether it is reused or not, whether it is going to be reused in the market or not? By taking feedback, by understanding the usage matrix. So whenever we are going to create an asset, now my focus is to make sure that we get feedback. We try to make sure that these assets should be used by maximum number of developers and users. They should be able to utilize it, and they should be able to give me right feedback to make this particular asset as reusable as it could be. Usage matrix helps you to understand the concept of consumed broadly. Maybe this asset is reusable, but let's say this asset is used only by 1 or 2 users. Then again, you can determine whether or not to put extra effort to this particular asset or not. So you can determine it using this usage matrix analysis. You can see that how many users are actually using this particular asset. Okay, and when you create this reusable and when you reusable assets, and when you actually expect people to give you feedback, and when you want to have a usage matrix, for that you need to make sure that your asset is discoverable. Right, we were just talking about C4E team right now over here. So the job of C4E team is to make sure that the assets are discoverable. Again, if I take you back to the same example that I have been referring to so far, that if I created a template of presentation, but let's say I never shared it with anyone, then what is the purpose of creating an asset like that? So when I have created an asset, I need to make sure that I have put it in my official drive, in my Google Drive, and I have shared the link across my employees, across my resources, so that whenever anybody needs that particular template, they should be able to download it from that particular link. It has to be discoverable. And self-service, of course. Self-service means that every time you are creating an asset, it's not your job to make it available and help people to know about this particular asset. Users should be able to find it depending upon their requirement. Okay, it should be so. For example, Wikipedia nowadays, whenever you need any information, you know where to go, right? As a user, you know where to go. Wikipedia does not send you a link saying that, hey, if you have any questions, ask me. So you have to market it in a way that it is already discoverable, and it should be able to give the user self-service. Whenever my user needs it, they should be able to cater it. And one thing also I told you, right, that innovation. People should be able to change it. People should be able to modify this asset the way they wanted to cater it to their clients. All right. So this is the idea of new IT operating model. This is the streamlined process that we follow. And you can see this idea is actually represented using this circular representation, right? So this circular representation actually shows iteration. At any given time, you should be able to modify this asset, because otherwise, what is the purpose of getting a feedback, right? The moment you take a feedback, you should have that flexibility to incorporate those changes to your assets. And that's how, again, you can send it for a feedback, and the process should go on and on depending upon the changes in the IT market. And you remember, we started off with IT delivery gap. We started from the changes in the IT market nowadays, which is evolving like anything. And we have to keep a pace with that because of the competition, because we want our clients to be happy. And that's how it can be achieved. Now, no matter what kind of changes are there in the future, my process is designed in a way that I can change my assets at any given time. And it is already discoverable and self-service, so that my user should be able to take the most of their advantages. Okay, any questions? We will be talking more about it in API development lifecycle, and I'll also show you Anypoint platform as well. But any question about the idea? Okay. So here you can also see some terminologies like central IT, LOB IT, and developers. So basically, these are categorized again in the MuleSoft nomenclature. So MuleSoft has categorized the dedicated teams into central IT team, LOB IT teams, and developers team. So central IT teams are basically responsible to unlock the data. This team should only be responsible to take care of system APIs. Similarly, when I say line of business, LOB IT, so these people know their client's requirement. These people know business. So these people will be basically working with central IT team to create these reusable assets, be it process APIs or be it system APIs. And now how to consume them. This should be dependent upon the, again, LOB IT teams and developers. LOB IT teams, why? Because they know the client's requirement. They know the business. So they, along with the developers, who would be able to make changes to the asset depending upon their client requirement. For example, my system API and my process API is ready. But let's say now this particular client wants the data to be used using a web app application. So the job of developers would be to create an experience API like that. Similarly, let's say if they want a mobile application or any smart application to be consuming that particular process API and system API. So this would be the job of developers along with LOBIT people to work on the experience APIs. So these are some nomenclatures, okay, which are actually suggested by MuleSoft. Okay, any questions, any inputs? Okay, perfect. So let's quickly move on. Now, as we were talking about the API-led connectivity approach, where we saw an image that each and every layer, the entire project is now loosely coupled. Every layer is interconnected with each other using different nodes, and these nodes are nothing but they are independent APIs which are governed independently, which can be scalable, which can be managed or monitored in their own ways. So every node has to undergo the complete API development lifecycle. And this API development lifecycle is also quite interesting because here we actually take the design first approach. Because just now we talked about something called as feedback. Now imagine you want to build a house. Okay. Now when you build a house, what do? Do you directly go to your construction site with all iron, bricks, cement, paint and everything and you start constructing the house? No, we don't do that, because what if tomorrow if somebody gives me a feedback that, hey, this is the wrong place, this is a government area, or let's say the electrician says that, hey, here I cannot put the wire for you. So how are you going to undo all the things that you have already done at the construction site? Correct? I cannot go ahead like that, because in my model, I'm actually encouraging my users to give me feedback. And why I'm encouraging them to give the feedback? So that I can incorporate them in my reusable assets. And hence, I take the design first approach here. I would first create a simple specification, and I would make sure that people should be able to use it and give me a feedback, so that whatever changes needs to be incorporated should be incorporated at the design level itself. Because you already know that once the development will start, it would be quite expensive. It would take a lot of effort, as well as it will consume a lot of time to incorporate the changes at development level. That is the reason you can see API development lifecycle is represented using 3 concentric circles. The innermost concentric circles represent design phase, wherein you first design your API specification, then you simulate it. Simulate means you kind of create a mocking service out of it. You kind of create a dummy project out of it, so that your users should be able to use them and should be able to give you a feedback. Now, don't you think it would be much easier for you now, right? Because you are at your design specification phase. So whatever feedback will be incorporated, you can validate them and you can make changes to your specification. And again, see, the entire representation is in circular way. So it actually represents iteration. So the moment you got a feedback, you can incorporate it in your specification. You can simulate it again, get the feedback again. If everything works right, then you can release your specification to the next phase. Until then, you can rework on your specification to make it right. And that's how you can actually focus on the concept of reusability, right? Because you are actually exposing it. You want to take feedback out from from the users out there in the market to understand their need, to understand their requirements. Now, once the specification is ready, you will enter into the development phase, wherein you actually build your application. You actually implement the idea of your specification. And as we all know that in any software development lifecycle, development and testing must go hand in hand to get a bug-free, to get a quality product, right? So we will do the development as well as testing in the development phase, and then we will finally get the service implementation. And once the development phase is done, we will enter into the deployment and management phase, where you will actually take care of deploying the application and managing them. You will take care of versioning, because as you can clearly see, you are actually undergoing a repetitive process. So definitely you have to maintain a version, because at any given time, if you would like to roll back, you should have the flexibility of that. You should make your application secure before exposing it. So in the deployment phase, you will also make sure that your APIs have all the policies, all the securities that should make your data, your implementation secure. Then you will make then you will deploy it depending upon the runtime plane, whichever runtime plane your clients is asking for, be it Cloud Hub, be it AWS, be it their on-premises, be it hybrid model. It completely depends. And of course, once the deployment is done, even then your job is not over. You have to monitor them. You have to analyze it, the usage. You have to check whether the application is getting used or not, whether people are actually utilizing it or not. Is there any challenges that they are facing? You have to troubleshoot the issues faced by your users at any given time. Right? In the beginning, we talked about the concept of scalability, right? Which was a major drawback of project-based implementation. So here, at every node, you have a feasibility, you have a flexibility of scaling it up and down depending upon your client's requirement. Because you can see every node is an independent node. And of course, since we are actually doing everything to make our application loosely coupled, we should make our application, more interactive, more useful to our users. So we have to be responsive to our users. We have to understand their requirements. We have to understand their needs. And this is how this API development lifecycle has been incorporated. This API development has to, each and every node in my API-led connectivity approach should ideally go through this API development lifecycle. All right. But of course, when you enter into the practical world, when you have the business implementation, it completely depends from situation to situation and projects to projects. But this is the ideal approach. Any questions? Okay. Any inputs, guys, if you have?
All good, Ankita.
Perfect. Great. So let's move on to now the incorporation part. These all things look so fascinating, right? We talked about the concept of API-led connectivity approach. Then we talked about API development lifecycle. Now the question is, how should we implement it? And to implement it, MuleSoft has given a beautiful product called as Anypoint platform. This Anypoint platform is a unified and a single solution. I would highlight this single solution over here. I think Ashish, you had mentioned it in the first slide itself. So yes, here you can clearly see Anypoint platform is a unified and a single solution for iPaaS full life cycle of API management. So here I would now, I would tell you that MuleSoft is not just an integration platform, but it actually gives you a complete solution to your iPaaS full lifecycle API management. Talk about design phase, talk about development phase, talk about deployment phase. You have everything at one place. And here I would also like to add one point, unlike any other integration platforms out there in the market. You might be knowing about TIBCO, you might be knowing about Informatica, Dell Boomi. MuleSoft has this particular USP, that this is a single tool which is so powerful that it can take care of your entire API development lifecycle at one place. Okay, so this Anypoint platform, as you can see, it has a design segment where you can design your API specifications. It also has Anypoint Studio embedded with it, which actually gives developer a beautiful IDE to develop the applications and incorporate all the runtime features into it. Now, you remember we talked about the concept of feedback. We talked about the concept of C4E. We talked about the concept of discoverable. I gave you an example that when I'm going to create a presentation template, I would put it into my Google Drive. What is that Google Drive? Google Drive is nothing, but it actually acts like a repository, which is shared among a lot of people, a lot of resources in my organization. Correct? So similarly, Anypoint platform gives you exchange, Anypoint exchange, wherein we put all our assets at one place. And whenever your user, your resources need to find that particular asset, they know that where to go. Today, you know I have to go to Wikipedia to cater yourself. That is the concept of self-service here. So here, when the moment you publish your API specification in the exchange, your users, your resources will get notified about it. They will get to know about the asset. They can go to that particular exchange and they should be able to find it. So this exchange is nothing but it is a centralized repository where you can put all your assets at one place. After design phase, we enter into the development phase. Development phase can be done using your Anypoint Studio, which is again a part of Anypoint platform. but it is a IDE. It's a desktop environment where you can work, you can deploy, you can develop your application right from scratch. Once the development part is done, we deploy and manage our application again using Anypoint platform, using API manager, using runtime manager, that actually helps you to manage your deployed applications, as well as it will help you to manage the access on top of your deployed applications, that who should be allowed to access your APIs. Your Anypoint platform also has a lot of extra features. Some are free, some are paid, but it completely depends from client to client and project to project. And of course, the utility, the utilization of that particular element in that for that particular project. Your Anypoint platform is also embedded with Mule runtime. It is nothing but it acts like an engine that helps you to run your application and test it. It also helps you to deploy your application. And when I'm talking about deployment, your Anypoint platform is integrated with any of the uh, uh, you know technologies, any of the platforms, you name it, be it on premises or a private cloud, be it hybrid, be it Cloud Hub itself, be it any other cloud service providers like Azure, AWS, Pivotal Cloud Foundry, anything. So your Anypoint platform can be integrated with any of the platforms where your client wishes to deploy the application. And you remember in the beginning itself, we talked about that IT delivery gap. And why that IT delivery gap was happening? Because of so many changes which are there out there, which are there in the market. And we would like to help our clients, we would like to cater our clients, and we would like to fulfill their demands the way they like to have. And your Anypoint platform actually helps you to achieve that. Okay. Any questions before I move on to demonstration part?
Yes, Ankita. For this, we had a question from Kalyani.
Please
So,
go ahead.
so it's a good question. Like, in which scenario or when can we decide like whether we want to go for a cloud hub deployment or RTF deployment, or I will add like on-prem deployment.
On-prem
Yeah,
deployment. Yeah.
yeah.
So
So
yes. Yes,
yeah, go
Abhishek,
ahead.
please go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so in this I can add like it's also depend like who's your customer is and what they want. Like if you are doing a cloud hub deployment, then it will be more a global deployment. But if you go with some other deployment, it will be more customer centric deployment. Okay, and if you go with cloud hub, then MuleSoft will be there for your support to handle things over there. But if you go with some other, then it will be you who will be responsible for any support or any upgradation over there. Okay, so it depends like who want to like whom you want to control, that you want MuleSoft to help you and control that, or you want yourself or the customer want themselves to have it more customer centric and handle it by themselves. Yeah, Ankita, you want to say something? I've
Yeah,
also
yeah,
shared
Abhishek.
a blog.
Yes.
I've
Huh.
also shared a blog in the chat which may help to identify like in which scenario we should use cloud hub and when to use RTF or any other deployment. Yeah, please go ahead.
Exactly, yes. So, of course, Abhishek, very well said. So, Kalyani, it completely depends from the user, client to client requirement, and of course, project to project requirements as well. So, Cloud Hub is completely, it's nothing but it is AWS EC2 instances also, which is integrated with Anypoint platform. So, let's say if your client is new, right? Like Annapurna was mentioning, what if my client is completely new and he just want to start a business and he just want to start something from scratch? Then definitely you can go with Cloud Hub because the entire system is integrated. You can handle the control plane, runtime plane, everything using your Anypoint platform. Time to market will be less, zero downtime would be there. But let's say if the customer is already existing, his data is already there in his own legacy systems, and let's say the data is very critical, he wants to be keep his data completely confidential, and he wants to manage it on his own, he can go with on premises. Now RTF is something which is the features which actually has all the features of Cloud Hub. In a very layman language, I'm telling you that it has all the features of a Cloud Hub, but it also gives you a sense of security so that the customer can manage their own data. So you can have zero downtime, high availability, load balancing, everything in RTF, but definitely the data will be managed by the customer itself. Okay, because in on-premises or in private cloud, what happens? Customer has to take care of everything from scratch, be it high availability, load balancing, installation of data, upgrading the OS, everything he will have to take care of on his own. But let's say he says that, okay, I don't want to go into that particular pain of managing my container. So you do all the container management. I will take care of my data. So in that particular situation, we can also go with RTF. Okay, so there are different segments. There are different reasons why we actually go with Cloud Hub, RTF, or even on premises. Sometimes we go with hybrid also, where the user say that, okay, half of my data I would like to have it on my on premises, and some of my data I would like to have it on my Cloud Hub also. Even that is possible. Even that can be done by MuleSoft. So it depends on my client requirement. Correct? Yeah.
Yep.
Got it, Kalyani? Any questions?
No more questions.
Okay. All right. Great. So in the next segment, I'll quickly take you to this Anypoint platform. So I've already logged in. I hope it is connected. Yeah, so as you can see, this is the home page of Anypoint platform. So in Anypoint platform, just now I told you, right, that it has everything at one place. So you can clearly see, if I go to the burger menu over here, here you have a design center. Design center actually helps you to design your API specification. So API specification, you can either use RAML or OAS. Both are integrated with your Anypoint platform. You can use any one of them to create your RAML API specifications. Just give me one moment. Expired. What did I do? Password. Okay, so this is the look of your design center. As you can clearly see, you can create new API specifications, you can create fragments, you can create a Mule application also, you can create async API, everything is integrated, as you can clearly see it over here, right? Plus, after designing an API, I'll take you to API development. That will give you a clear picture. So we talked about the design phase. So in design phase, we can create API specification. Then we can simulate it, right? We can create a dummy application out of it. So that we can do using Exchange. So in Exchange, whenever an application is created, automatically an API portal will be generated. If I can clearly, quickly show it to you, let me just, yeah. So this is nothing but it is just like a centralized repository of your organization. Okay. Now, whatever assets that you want to publish, you can publish it over here and you can get the list right over here in your window. There are certain assets which are provided by default by MuleSoft to every Anypoint platform user. So if I go to provided by MuleSoft, you can see there are so many APIs or assets. And yes, assets. When I said assets, I told you that it does not only mean APIs. Assets can also have connectors, templates, examples, different kinds of APIs, fragments, and whatnot. Okay, so here you can see there are so many types of APIs, so many types of connectors which are listed over here. And if I can quickly show you the simulation. So there is one API which is provided to us by MuleSoft. So let's say this is an American flight API. So if I click on it, you can clearly see that in this particular portal, just one moment, you have a segment where your users can go through the details about your API and they can give you feedback. See, there is a review section, so they can share their ideas with you. They can give you a feedback whether or not they like your API or not, what all changes they would want to have in your API. Okay, you can also mock it. The moment we publish it in the exchange, automatically my API gets simulated. See, let's say in this particular API, I have created an endpoint flights and I have one method called get. So if I click on this get method, automatically you can see a mocking service is created for you. Using this mocking service, you can make some calls to this particular dummy API and you can see that, okay, this is the expected output that I can get. This is the working of this particular API. And based on that, your users can give you feedback. So this particular platform is designed in a way that everything is automated. It's just like, everything is on your fingertips. You just need to create a specification. You know where to publish your API, the centralized repository. Automatically, the simulation will happen, the dummy API will be created, and your user should be able to give you a feedback that you can validate. If you want to incorporate the changes, go on with the process. If you find it, fix and final, you can release your API specification. Once your specification is created, you can actually, if I go back to Anypoint platform homepage, I can show you that from Anypoint platform homepage itself, you can download your Anypoint Studio, which is nothing but it is a desktop IDE, which helps your developers to build and test your APIs using this particular framework. Okay. So once the application is created, it is built, you can directly deploy your applications from Studio to Anypoint platform. I mean, through Anypoint platform to your corresponding runtime plane, whether it is on-premises, Cloud Hub, we just now spoke about it. And to manage that, you have a management center. So in Management Center, we have Runtime Manager, from where you can manage the deployed applications, like how many workers needs to be associated with your application, what is the performance, what is the CPU usage, what is the memory usage, if you want to scale it up and down, if you want to go through logs, everything can be done using a Runtime Manager. And when it comes to the access of my API, who can access my asset, I can manage it using API Manager. I can secure it. I can create an API proxy. Everything can be managed using API Manager. Even API Manager gives you an analytics to measure that usage matrix. Okay, so all the design phase, development phase, as well as deployment phase, everything can be managed using your Anypoint platform. And this is just a trailer that I have shown it to you right now. Your Anypoint platform is a very powerful tool equipped with a lot of other elements that we can cover up in next meetups also. And you can see that how user-friendly your Anypoint platform is. Any questions, please, related to the UI of Anypoint platform or anything related to API-led connectivity approach?
Any question, guys? I don't see anything on chat. There were a few from Kalyani. I have already answered that.
So, Ankita,
Yeah, Achyut.
yeah,
Achal?
just one question. Can you
Yeah.
speak more about on the access management as well?
Sure. So, access management is basically to manage the access of your Anypoint platform. Okay, we were talking continuously about assets right now, right?
Yeah,
Sorry, Achal, you
yeah,
were
yeah,
there, right? Huh.
yeah.
So when it comes to your assets, you can manage it using API Manager and Runtime Manager. But as an organization, when you create this Anypoint platform, you have a feasibility of creating your teams, because you would like to have an eye of different kinds of LOBs which are created, how the teams are performing, how they are working on a particular application, right? So you can manage
Mhm.
everything using your access management. Okay, for example, here in access management, you can see this is my organization name and I'm the owner. So depending upon project to project, I can create different business groups. Once the business groups are created, you can allocate different team members to be a part of that particular business group and start working on their own assets, be it design phase, development phase, as well as exchange. They will be having access to the entire setup of platform and you can have an eye on it. Okay, you can add a number of users, you can give them permissions using roles, you can create multiple environments, like how many environments you want to have it, from in different business groups. So you can have a control from here on any point platform perspective, on your organization perspective.
So, that users we can add under business groups, right?
Yeah, these users will be the users of your organization. And if you create separate LOBs, separate business groups, then you can create different teams and different business groups. And you can isolate them also. Having an eye on both the LOBs, you can, isolate both the LOBs from each other. Even
Yeah,
that you can do it from here.
correct. So, identity management that we can do, that is at the organization level, correct?
Yeah, identity management, of course, you can do it at the organization level, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right, Abhishek, Ashish, correct?
Yeah. So that is
Hmm.
like you wanna provide, like if you have an organization, you wanna provide SSO uh,
Mm-hmm. Ping
capabilities
fig.
to them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
correct.
then you use that where you are restricting like who can use your platform. Okay, you don't want any people just to log in and use that. So they provide their particular link. By using that link, automatically you will be redirected to your platform. Okay, so all that capabilities can be done over here. And
So,
yeah,
yeah, go ahead, then I'll let you.
and like as we are talking about users, so like you have an admin who has got the full access and they decide like what access you need to get, like whether you need to get an access to the access management or the API manager or the runtime manager, so they can decide like what all access you can get over there.
Correct. So just it might be the lame question, but do we have multiple organization under the same Anypoint platform? No.
Multiple organization, no. Like
No.
you can create different groups in same
Correct.
organization, but you cannot have multiple organization in same platform, no.
Correct. Multiple
Like,
business groups would be there.
yeah, multiple business group would be there.
Okay.
Got it, Achal, because Anypoint platform is actually managed by your organization itself,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So it
Correct.
will
Correct.
depend from organization to
Yeah.
organization. But if you would like to share your assets outside organization, you have a
Mhm.
public exchange as well for that.
Yeah. Okay. So that
Okay.
is not come with the trial version, I guess. Public exchange and
No, no, no. It comes with the trial version also. See, if I have an exchange over here,
yeah, yeah. Okay. To yeah,
huh?
that I get
See, you
it.
have
Yeah.
a public
Correct.
portal.
Correct.
So
Correct.
whoever has this link should be able to access
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
assets which are there in your public portal. You
Correct.
can do that.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Ankita, can you
Huh,
explain a little
okay.
bit on the client provider?
Yeah, sure. So basically, client provider is nothing but when you make a call. For example, let's say you have if I go very straight, if you have ARC or a postman and you want to make a call to your particular API through an ARC or a postman. So sometimes your assets are secured. It needs, let's say, it needs a client ID and secret for your ARC, for your user to make a call to your particular API. So these client providers basically keep a track of all the client IDs and secrets of different users. For example, let's say there is an asset in in this particular exchange. Okay, for example, let me quickly show it to you. It would be better. So I'll take one using MuleSoft. Okay, let's say this is one asset, and right now you can see users should be able to make calls to this particular endpoint using a mocking service. But the moment you would like to make a call to the actual service, you need to get a client ID and secret. It is secured. It is a secured application, right? So the what do I need to do? I'm an external user, okay, and I want to make a call to this particular, like this API, I went through the mocking service. I find this API useful to my particular application. So naturally, I would like to access the actual implementation. So for that, you can raise access. Okay. How can we raise an access? One second. Let me go to this previous UI. It's much easier for me. So if I quickly go to, okay, this is, since this is the protected
No,
one, I'm not
you,
able to get this one.
you need to have
Yeah.
your own published one. There you can have that. So there is an
Correct. Correct.
option like when you go to Exchange and when you go to your API, there is an option for request access. So
Request access,
when
right?
you do that request access, and for that, like you also need to, if I'm not wrong, you need to register that in your API manager first.
Exactly.
So in API manager, you will get an API ID. So once you come to your Exchange and you see the request access thing, there you can generate a client ID and client secret, and that client ID and client secret you can see in the client provider.
Exactly.
Maybe
So it depends from user to user. Whichever user, for example, I have raised a request, so I will get my client ID secret. Maybe you have raised your request, you will have your client ID and secret. So all the client ID and secrets, depending upon the users, will be registered in the client provider. Right, Abhishek?
yes, true.
Yeah. Okay. And when the client is going to make a call to that particular API using that client ID credentials, then those client ID and secret are actually matched by the client provider, which has stored the client ID and secret of that particular client. If that tallies, then only the request will be approved. If that is not matching, then right away my user is going to get an error. There is an authentication error. Okay. Huh.
Yeah,
Yes, Abhishek.
and one more thing, like if it is your account, so if you have the access to client provider, you can only see those client ID and client secret which you have created. If I'm not wrong, this is
Yes,
only
yes,
like related to your
absolutely.
account. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the best part is even admin should not be allowed to see your client ID and client secret. Client ID
Yeah,
is visible, but client secret is still protected.
correct.
Okay, got it. I think Pavan, it was your
Pavan, yeah.
question, right? Hmm?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So you got it right, Achal, about access management also.
Yeah, yeah, Ankita, I'm good.
Huh. So access management is from organization perspective. Okay, you can also see you have a concept of connected apps. So connected apps, again, if I'll tell you that you can you have your bank accounts, right? And if you, let's say, if you have debited some amount or credited the amount is credited, you want that notifications to be you want to receive those notifications on WhatsApp. So what is WhatsApp? WhatsApp is an external third party application. But what you can do, you can have that WhatsApp integrated with your bank account software or bank application. So these are the connected apps. So you can also have multiple connected apps to your Anypoint platform, okay, for various applications or various utilities. So in a very nutshell, I can clearly say that access management can be used to manage the access at an organization level. Okay, all right. Anything else? Any other questions?
I don't see on the chat. Any question from anyone, guys?
All right, perfect then. So with this, we are going to almost conclude the session, and the last topic was why MuleSoft. So I think in the entire discussions we have talked about a lot of advantages here. So the first and foremost advantage that you can see that we have just now saw was easy to use. I just now told you, right, that this is a single application, single platform. In different other platforms, be it Tipco, Delbumi, they have, you know, different platforms itself, different softwares itself to manage the different phases of API development lifecycle. When it comes to development, they have a different platform or a software. When it comes to deployment, they have a different platform for that. So it becomes difficult when you are actually managing a complicated architecture. You are actually dealing with n numbers of nodes and APIs and assets. You also have to take an an additional care of your application, which is helping you to manage these stuff. So here, at least that part is gone, right? Everything is manageable using that one particular platform. Graphical based, everything is graphical based. So even if you do not have a coding background, it's okay. You can easily adapt to MuleSoft. MuleSoft is very cost effective in comparison to different other competitors. Definitely, I think there was a conversation about costing in the chat window. See, first time it can be what do you say? The investment costing is actually higher because you are actually starting from scratch. But once you move on to future prospects, definitely it is cost effective because you are actually focusing on the concept of reusability. So if the asset is already ready, you do not need to again create everything from scratch. Try to compare it with the project-based approach or the other approaches where you do not have that concept of reusability, where you just can use your nodes and assets only in-house. You cannot expose them. So automatically it becomes cost effective. And the second reason why it is cost effective, because you do not have to maintain multiple applications, right? You do not have to maintain multiple softwares. Just right now we spoke about, you have just one platform, Anypoint platform, that you have to manage, and that's it. You are sorted. In Anypoint platform, in MuleSoft, you have a very easy transformation logic. Talk about Tipco, talk about Delbumi. The transformation logic is quite lengthy. It's quite difficult. But here you already have a connector which is created for you using MEL that can help you to transform your data formats very easily and very quickly. I'm talking about XML, Java, JSON. So you can do the transformation very easily and very quickly using MuleSoft. And trust me, if you have used or if you guys have worked with different platforms over here, you can easily make out the comparison. In addition to, yeah, sorry, somebody.
No,
Yeah,
carry on.
Abhishek.
No, carry on.
Sorry. Other than that, you also have better error handling mechanism in MuleSoft, and everything is inbuilt. They are graphical based. All you just need to apply a logic. You just need to be innovative. Just forget about all the donkey work. Forget about the repetitive tasks. MuleSoft has already taken care of that. You just have to focus on the logic over here, and everything is ready made for you. And for MuleSoft, there is also an added advantage. Very well articulated trainings are available for MuleSoft, unlike any other integration platform. So if you really want to, learn MuleSoft, you can simply go to your training.mulesoft.com. You can start from there, and the training materials are very beautifully articulated. And one thing I also want to add over here, having said that, we have already talked about cost effectiveness and all. MuleSoft is, I think, one of a very few integration platforms that can used for a small scale industry also. From small scale to large scale industry, you can use MuleSoft. Because just now we talked about the concept of Cloud Hub. Let's say if a client is completely new and he just wants to start a small business, you can go with MuleSoft. You have a dedicated vCore, you can give it to that particular business and you can start incorporating it. However, your other competitors, they do not support small scale industry. They actually are created for middle level to large level business. So these are the reasons why MuleSoft has become such a big hit in the market today, and why we are actually, talking about MuleSoft nowadays very frequently. Any questions? Any confusions?
Hi Ankita. One more thing, to your previous slide, like I
Yes,
worked on TIPCO, I worked on WSO2 as well, and MuleSoft as well. One more
right.
advantage and strength of MuleSoft is the community which we have.
Absolutely,
The
yes.
large community which we have, the different platforms are there where we can raise the question and our
True.
community members help us out. So that is the biggest strength I feel.
Biggest strength, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So that is why MuleSoft is such an easy thing right now, right? Even though it is such a big deal, everyone can learn MuleSoft. Everyone can reach out to different mentors, different ambassadors, community members, and there are different forums over here where you can raise your questions and you should be able to get the answers
Yes.
within minutes. So of course, that's a big help. Thank you, Annapurna, for adding
Yes.
that. All right. So yes, Abhishek, I think I'm done from my end. Over to you.